see, everybody wants something more beautiful. And that something is not a something. It's actually a real realization of it. How do you get there? You have to unblock all the blocks. That's what you're doing. You're unblocking the blocks. Some of the patterns hold all the blocks exactly in place. So your beliefs of how you're separate, how you must get fulfilled, how terrible life is, and how you're going to die, and how it's unfulfilling, all the reaction, all the disappointing emotions, all the ideas you have support a separate self-sense that is, can't be fulfilled or wants to be fulfilled. And that's the dynamic that has to be undone, the separate self-sense that wants to be filled or is upset it can't be fulfilled. You bounce back between both places. Oh, it's all exciting now, I'm getting fulfilled. Or it's terrible now, I'm not getting fulfilled. And that whole mechanism and how it perpetuates the separate self-sense and dislocation from the real relatable field and recognition of the sacred as living all. Well, that's why this work has to get done, understanding and recognizing and releasing self-contraction. But what I've seen is one-on-one bonding with you hasn't, it's given a lot of background to be able to still be in the room and have some humility and see that you're not here to be fulfilled by enlightenment or me, that it's another process than what you thought, so you're still here for that, past that assumption. So, but now it's time in the remaining years of our work and life that everybody get somewhere that isn't about that same mechanism going. I'm not fulfilled, I gotta get fulfilled. I'm not fulfilled, I gotta get fulfilled. And see that mechanism is what's being undone. And so if you're not trying to get fulfilled and you're not feeling disappointed or excited about it, what's going on with you? You're here, located now in a recognition of the sacred as living you. That's what's left. And that's what nobody has got to live to any degree. You've had sporadic spiritual experiences of that. And some people, when they have a spiritual experience of that, they think they're self-realized now. They think there's everything. But that's just the beginning of being able to live there and to practice there. And to have that fulfilled where the whole separate, the separate self-sense actually dissolves. And there is no separate one ever again. Now the separate one is an imaginary identity in the first place. And yet, to get rid of the separate one, you have to go on this imaginary journey. That's why it's creative. You're going to imagine all of it. But now you have to imagine what works to serve this, rather than that just holds the pattern of, I want to get fulfilled in spiritual life, but I'm not. So something's wrong with spiritual life. Nothing's wrong with spiritual life. It's your assumption of wanting to get fulfilled by it. You can't get filled by who you really are. You can only be who you really are. And once you're who you really are, it's just a natural thing. It's not like, wow, it's me, and I'm enlightened, and it feels great. It's just natural to you. When other people describe their suffering and the self-contraction, and how they're unfulfilled, and how they're seeking, and how they really want to get fulfilled, I don't really live there. It's different. I'm just open right now, exactly as I am, not separate from the sacred, being the sacred, using this vehicle as this. So you see it look like this and act like this. But you also see it not acting like a pattern of seeking and animating the self-contraction. So we established that self-realization is not that pattern through your instruction and role model and transmission that I've given you. So yeah. So I think this year's going to be fabulous if you get on it. Maybe you can have some real undoing in some of the pattern in the belief system and the trying to get fulfilled in that area. If you know that nothing's going to fulfill you ever, but that isn't a terrible, disappointing news, how would that affect you?
Release would be
freeing. Yeah, it'd be very freeing. But see, you view all that news as what? Yeah. Bad news. Yeah. So there's something in the emotional vehicle that's locked down into the pattern of I have to get fulfilled here. And so your mind can say, I can study this and see what? That this belief is causing me all the trouble. But if your emotions are all locked down into it, you're not releasing it, are you? So the mind can say, hey, yeah, that's a bad idea. And then the next minute you're going to do the bad idea. And you go, well, I have to do what I wanted. And the mind says, that's a bad idea. The mind and the emotions are actually the same thing. But they seem split when you have an idea that seems good, but nothing in you wants to do that idea. So they seem split only at that time. Otherwise, you recognize it to be the same unit. No, because the assumption is that the sacred is not available to ordinary, everyday people, that everyday people are just trying to stay alive or trying to get some fulfilled through some kind of material connection to the world, and that the divine is not living us all and is not here to be realized as true identity. Yeah. You know, so the big secret, it's always been a big secret throughout humanity, but it's not really. Who's willing. But you can see how it happens. It happens through links and circle and the connection. It doesn't, like, you would be surprised that maybe, like, I'll just put out an example. Somebody shows up one day and they really just become an intimate part of the circle and they jump right into the work. And you go, how did this happen? Mm-hmm. And then somehow you notice, you get the secret information revealed, and they actually were at this time and you saw them there, or she met him and this met her and this, that. And you don't know all the links that are going on to create a life where someone can actually do the work of really living in this process. And you don't know. Yeah. You don't know what's going on, but it's pretty magical and it's pretty wonderful how the self is creating all that. And it just takes whatever it is, and it's unconscious, and it moves it around to become conscious. God's not here to fulfill you, and God's not here to make you suffer, or to make you decide between good and bad and choose good. God is here as you are, and is realizable as true identity. Sometimes things have some forms and ways of doing things, or seeing things, or where you stand as a pattern. If you kill it off, then something new can happen. It's not all like nothing works out and it's all miserable and terrible. It's like a new pattern. That's the transformation of the divine. It's like a phoenix. It keeps rising from the ashes of what before. But what's coming up now is always more potent. So it's up to you to use that empowerment with each other in the circle. And the days of creating spiritual ego are gone. And spiritual information as a means to prove that your spiritual is gone. And the time of just really being accountable for understanding what the separate self-sense is, and what the how it's animating the self-contraction all the time. That's the time now. Once you get onto it, it's pretty easy to not do it. Once you really understand it. And that's why the circles are set up, because some of you have told me, like, I'm doing it, and I don't really get how I'm doing it. I know I don't feel good. I don't feel related or connected to the divine or the source, but I don't know what I'm doing. And over this period coming up and the struggles of the last year, you're going to get to know it. And if you're really being empowered and inspired by each other, that you're being instruments of that sacred purpose, that it's not going to be a huge, terrible, embarrassing, terrible, I feel humiliated process. It's just going to feel like, oh, yeah, now I get it more. Now, yeah, I can do that. All right, I get it. And that more and more that's going to happen. And it's like walking a walk that's a little hard, you're going to get up that hill. But once you do it, when you look back at what's your favorite event, or what's your favorite walk, or what's your favorite this, what's your favorite, it's always the thing that involved the most out of you. No one says, well, just walking down the lake for 5 minutes was my most wonderful moment walk. And then you say, oh, when I went up Half Dome, or when I did this, or when I did that. See, it's always the struggle that empowers your happiness. Your happiness that, I'm getting, this is true. I know I know this is. My intuition, my feeling of it.
Yeah.
So your feelings won't be hooked up to defending the self-contraction. They'll be hooked up into empowering the release, recognizing and releasing it. All right? So, I think it's done.
Yeah.